Yeah, we're live. I'm back. I've been gone for a few days. Took a trip down to Florida and it was awesome. It was everything that I wanted it to be. Obviously, we wanted to catch, a 10 or 15 or 20-foot python, but I've been catching snakes a long time and that sort of thing is really, really difficult. And so we'll talk about that. I'm going to do a whole video on my adventure in Florida and going down there with my buddy Jimmy and his kids. And it was it's a road trip, just like all the road trips are. So it's like lots of bad food and very little sleep and lots of adventures, and we get to meet lots of cool people, and it was awesome. Lots of people out with so for people that don't know, they're watching this video, what I did was took a trip down to Florida to go help catch the invasive, Burmese pythons. And so I went down there. I'd never caught one, so I thought, hey, this is going to be cool. And the other thing is, not just that snake, which was, an invasive species, and we want to try to help eradicate it, but it's going to be difficult. I mean, this is like an ideal habitat for them. So for the guys that don't know the story, with the pythons, there was a big warehouse and there was a hurricane and it destroyed the warehouse and released all these snakes into what is like an ideal habitat for them. So you got water, swamp, places to hide, lots and lots of food. Everything that they can devour, they would essentially be on the top of the food chain, with the exception of, if it's a smaller snake, there are lots of things that will eat the smaller snakes. But once the snake gets pretty big, other than a big alligator, they're kind of at the top of the food chain. So it's like ideal for them. Hey, look, I got water. It's warm. I like the temperature. This is really, really nice. I got places to hide so other things can't get me, like people. And there's so many, there's so many other things to eat, other snakes and lizards and rodents and deer. I mean, even big things that they eat. There's lots and lots of stuff out there. So that's out there happening. And there's people now that go and hunt them and try to get rid of those snakes because they shouldn't be there, like other invasive species that are there too. We saw an eel, which is very, very cool. In fact, there was a hawk that was eating the eel. So there's lots of good stories out there. Lots of cool guys that we met out doing the same thing, basically out, driving the roads with spotlights and stuff. And so it was just cool. And I got to see lots of other snakes that I'd never, I don't run across here, obviously in the United States or in California. So I got we found a Eastern diamondback, which is very cool. Lots of water moccasins, water snakes, a rat snake, and normal things that we see a lot of, like garter snakes and things like that. But lots and lots of those, but lots of cool stuff. And walking through the swamps, hey, look, there's an alligator right there. So it was awesome, and it was cool to spend time with your buds and stuff. And the other thing I got to do is with my buddy Jimmy, he was giving me my first lesson on TIG welding, which is good and also very difficult, as I found out. So I was trying to, because I'm going to do, the thing that I'm most interested in for TIG welding is I'd like to be able to TIG weld aluminum. So when I make things like intake manifolds or, intake tubing or thing, that I can do that. I'm a long way from doing that. I can put a bead on a flat piece of aluminum and have it look fairly nice, but sticking things together right now eludes me. But like everything else, that's just a matter of time and practice and stuff. So, but it's something that I want to do more of, and he's very good at it. So I want to do more of that. Also got to take a ride in Jimmy's NSX. And so for you guys that haven't watched the video that's up, he has an NSX, but it has a J-swap. It has a J35 swap in it. So trying to get a C-series NSX motor, either a 3-liter or 3.2, very, very expensive if you haven't priced them. But what there are lots and lots of, and which work really, really well, are the J series Honda V6s. So that your normal run of the mill kind of thing. Although as they progressed fairly rapidly after the NSX went away, they make a lot of power. So even your normal, like a Cord or Acura, an ILX or something, a TSX, all of these where they had these performance versions of these motors, it actually did really well. And the nice thing about it is if you get a 3.2 or a 3.5 or now the new 3.7, you get a stroker version of an NSX motor. And so he has one of those in there. And right now, I think when we took a ride in it, we were making some hits in it. It's about 20 pounds. And so we're thinking that it's, his motor was making, I don't know, more than 600 at like 13 or 14 pounds. And so we're thinking it's near somewhere in the 750 to 800 at the tire. So it felt like that. It felt really, really pretty zippy. And, it always does when you're on the passenger side and you're not driving. And also when it's your first ride in that and you haven't done it 20 or 30 times, you're like, oh, that feels pretty fast. But, so I'm thinking that it certainly feels like a 9-second car to me. So we'll have to see. He's going to take it to the track and do some stuff with it, but it's making really good power. Also, he wants to run it on a chassis dyno. So we have some numbers and what I want which would be cool, are numbers at different boost levels. So what does it do at 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds? And then it'd be cool to go out and make runs like that and just see even if you didn't get an optimum launch in every case, I would like to kind of see what happens. Okay, what's the mile an hour at 5 pounds? What's the mile an hour at 10 and 15 and 20, and kind of see what's going on. Because obviously, a lot of times racers, when they're doing stuff like that, they want it turned all the way up. So I got to go run at 20 pounds because I want to get the big mile an hour and the low ET, and that's what racing is. But I look at it from a data standpoint. So here's what because we would give people information that way. Here's what it would do at this power level and this power level and this power level and this power level. And how does that correlate from what we see on the dyno to being out at the track? So that was very, very cool. Got to do a lot of that. And like I said, it was a long drive down into Florida. It was like a 10-hour drive because we started out near Atlanta. Got to see my buddy Bernie, who came to visit who lives near Atlanta. Got to see him. So he came over and we got to tell stories and have dinner and stuff. So that was awesome. And we all made it back safely. So we went, traipsing through the swamps of Florida. And again, it's not my first time to Florida because technically I have flown into Miami on my way to the Bahamas when we went, and there was Hurricane Irene. So we got to go stay when we went to the Bahamas, we were staying at the Royal Atlantis Hotel, and we were there during the hurricane. So we got to have like 125 mile an hour winds, and we got to go, as my family, we got to go through that. And, that was exciting, but going into Miami and just like walking through the airport is not like being in Florida. That's a different thing. That's like being in any airport. You're not seeing all of the stuff, but driving all the way through Florida from the top to the bottom and then traversing all across Florida. Cause we went, basically what you're doing is driving. Some of what we were doing was driving on the roads and trying to spotlight on the side of the roads, which is where we found one of the snakes. But everywhere, we drove from one side to the other and up and down from, basically, if you look on a map, from the 75 freeway that traverses, Florida, everywhere south of there, every road that we could find, we're just out driving around looking for stuff. So it was very, very cool. And then what would have been cool was on our way down, we could have stopped by to see Freedom Factory. That would have been cool to just go by and see if anybody was there and say hi or take a picture or whatever. But as it turned out, had we done that, I wouldn't have found the Burmese python that I did find. And because that's the thing about finding these snakes, is that it's not just a matter of being in the right place. You have to be in the right place at the right time. So it's an intersection thing. Like, hey, there are snakes here. It's a swamp. We know that there are. But are you driving down the road or walking through the swamp or on a levee or wherever you're at? Are you doing that when the snake happened to be, either crawling by or sitting there, sunning himself or waiting for something to come by so that he could bite it? Did you guys intersect at the right time? And so that's why there's a lot of driving up and down, guys in trucks with big light rigs and stands and all kinds of elaborate stuff, which was very, very cool to see those guys. Like I said, we got to meet a couple of them and sit down and talk with them, and which was very cool just to meet fellow enthusiasts and stuff out there. It was cool. And then when we were driving through Miami, there was, I think, a new dealership was opening up or something, but it was a big exotic car place. And so there's a whole bunch of Lamborghinis and Ferraris and stuff and Porsches. Just, I think that they were giving people rides. It looked like, because there's a ton of people at this particular dealership. And as we were driving by, everyone's yelling and screaming and hooting and hollering. All these cars are driving by. It was pretty cool. You know, it's like a welcome to Miami kind of thing. But we're here, and we made it, and like I said, lots of, you know, it's Florida, so there are lots of venomous snakes, lots of water moccasins. The thing that made me the most excited was the fact that I got to see up close, although it was a baby, we got to see a eastern diamondback, which is one of the other things that I was looking for. We wanted to go, you know, help eradicate the Burmese pythons, and it was cool to. But the problem is when you're looking for, it's hard enough to find snakes, any kind of snake, when you're out looking for snakes. But trying to find one particular one is difficult. So I was just hoping that in all of this, when we were doing this, that we would actually run across, you know, something like that. So it was very, very cool. But we'll get back to our automotive stuff. The 5.3 liter that we ran recently on the dyno, where we made 540 something horsepower. I want to try to make more. And so I asked you guys, well, hey, what should we try? And it seems like lots of guys want to try different fuels, E85, methanol, certainly some sort of nitromethane mix, which would be good. I kind of want to try that and see, you know, what we can achieve with that. But I'd like to try some other things too. I want to try injector placement. So I want to try to change where I want to try spraying in the inlet side. I want to try running that Trinity intake manifold with either without a plenum or just with the lid removal, or a dual throttle body, or some kind of thing, so that we can improve the airflow and change the, you know, change the effective power curve. It will be interesting. It might be cool to try different. I'm trying to think about how many header configurations we have at Westech. We have some different header configurations we can try. Some people suggested, you know, X pipes and things like that. But judging by the power gains that they got from the X pipe and H pipe and things on those tests that the guys at Engine Masters did, I don't think that we're going to see a lot. I don't think we'll see a lot there. But maybe somebody suggested you know, like an Edelbrock Super Victor intake manifold with a big carburetor on them. That might be a possibility. I'd actually have to ask Brian. I've never run a test like that. I can't ever remember testing that Trinity intake manifold anyway out at Westech. But I'm wondering if Brian has ever tested that. I like the idea of introducing fuel, because we're going to get a cooling effect, which is good. So I'd like to see if that's a possibility. The other thing I was thinking is along the same line, just like maybe a Holley high ram, but with carburetors on it. So we could try that and see if that's going to deliver more power. I don't think any of the IR intake manifolds that I've run, like the Speedmaster stuff, I don't think that that's in the hunt for this kind of stuff. I just don't think that it doesn't have the airflow, and I don't think it has a short enough runner length to do what we need to do where we need to do it. Lots of guys obviously are saying, hey, you need to tighten up that LSA. I don't think that's the answer. I think that we might see in the RPM range that we're seeing, like we're looking for a peak number kind of. I'm not looking for average power production. If we were doing that, I'd pick a different intake manifold. I don't know that that's going to help. And the other problem is that with as much duration as we're running to get this RPM where we want it to be and to make power where this manifold and the cylinder head combination wants to make power, I don't know that we can tighten this thing up too much and not just, you know, make all of the available piston to valve clearance disappear. So I don't know that that's going to work. You know, I'd have to look and see how much we could juggle that to see and try it. And I think that if we go down in duration and then go tighten the LSA so that we have the piston to valve clearance, I think we just hurt ourselves for peak power. But, you know, that's one of the comments that, you know, we get. There are guys that are David Vizard disciples, and they think that, oh yeah, you got to tighten the LSA. That's the answer to everything, and not having any idea like what the valve events are. And then maybe the reality is that this is essentially already a tight LSA camshaft, despite the fact that the LSA number that they don't want to see is not what they want, but they don't know what's happening with the valve events. So the thing that a tighter LSA would do to the valve events is already being done, so there's all of that. But one of the comments, people were making comments about that. I said, look, I will compare anything. If you want to have David Vizard spec out a camshaft and have Brian spec out a camshaft for an LS, and you want to have a shootout, I will be happy to do that. You don't even have to tell me, just put them in white boxes. Don't even tell me which one is which one. I don't care. I will do a test so that we'll be able to show, hey, this one does this and this one does this. And is there anything? What I can tell you right now is there's no universal like, oh, tight LSA is the way to go. Anybody that says that doesn't know what they're talking about with cams. That's not a universal thing. Might there be a camshaft with different specs that could do something to the power curve? Yes, there is, definitely. And I'm all for that. But, people making these statements as universal things, it's just like every dual plane does this, every single plane does this, every tunnel ram does this. It's not that simple. If it were that simple, that life would be a lot easier. And I would do less dyno testing. We would just speculate and tell you guys the answer. Did you get the monster? I was able to catch a Burmese python, which is why we went there. It was a smaller one. It was like 4 feet or something. So it was a juvenile. I'm excited, and especially after talking to guys that have been there, live there, and have been doing this a long time. They're like, dude, you caught one? Where'd you catch it at? So obviously they were excited that we caught one, because quite honestly, let's look at this from a Burmese python standpoint, is that we saw lots and lots of people where we were at. It's our first time, and so we don't have all the ins and outs, but the areas where we were looking, there were lots of other people looking there. There were lots of other guys, fellow snake dudes in trucks with lights driving the roads that we were driving. So we know we were in the right spot. My point is that let's say that there are lots and lots of guys out there doing that, because there are guys doing this every night. The snakes that they're going to find are ones where they intersect from driving these roads. But my point is, if you're trying to eradicate these snakes, doing it in this method where it's convenient for people to be out driving with their vehicles on these roads and covering lots of ground, which is good, you're only going to get the ones that crawl, near or on the road. But how many is that relative to the other ones that are out, enjoying life away from people in the swamp and reproducing and doing all those things? How many people are walking out into the swamps and trying to do that? So I don't know the answer to that, but I would like to see. And I think that sort of situation, even though we have lots and lots of people doing that and trying to help that, which is always a good thing, I don't know that that's going to really do it. And even snake hunts where they go find, 100 snakes or whatever, I think that they're reproducing faster than that. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how we're gonna get that under control. We also saw other invasive species which were there, like I think it's an Asian eel, which was really cool. It's just a big eel, and it happened to be preyed upon by a hawk. So we're watching the hawk. I'm like, the hawk is like sitting there. We're driving on the side of the road, and I saw a hawk sitting there next to a tree, and he's like, it looks like he's engaged in something. I'm like, we need to look right over there. So we get up and walk up, and the hawk flies up in the tree, and he's like looking at us like, man, why are you guys interrupting my food? And we walk over, and it's this big eel that he had caught and is munching on. It was pretty cool. Okay, so let's see what snakehead fish. Yep. Anybody else think that the snakes are the devil's pet? No, they're just part of nature. Sure, you get the hang of TIG. It's just seat time. Grab some coupons and get these stacking dimes. That's right. Like I said, I thought, oh, this is really easy. I got the handle of it. I got the whole. This thing is not a problem. I just go and lay a nice bead across the flat thing, Jimmy's like, yeah, that's not what this is. Just wait till you try to do this, and wait till you try to work with something that's not clean, or some of these aluminum tubes from China where there's lots of porosity and lots of contamination and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, none of this is working out. It'll be interesting, but I'm excited about it. I like the idea of doing that and controlling it. It'll be cool. Sold my house and moved after my wife announced she wanted a divorce. Uh-oh, that's not good. Nothing. We didn't see anything bigger than, I actually think that like 3.5 or 4 foot or whatever probably was the biggest one that we saw. The rat snake might have been that long, but was not as big and heavy bodied as the python was. We did see an eastern diamondback, which I was very, very excited about. I'll post a picture of that. Let's see. Tide still up in the mountains. Okay. Cutting PTFE-10 lines for a fuel system and venting system. Trying this one into the exhaust. Nice. They love sunning in the roads in the early morning. Actually, the best time to find them, at least the pythons and the other snakes, it seemed like, because we went out during the day, we went out at night, and the best time to find them is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. seems like. That seemed to be the golden hour for the snakes. And the thing that was crazy there are the frogs. And of course the mosquitoes. We just got munched on by mosquitoes, even through our clothes. And we sprayed DEET or whatever the stuff is all over, and it was still not enough to. And I wondered why. When we went into a marina, which was interesting. We went to the marina, and in the marina store, they had like mosquito helmets and netting and stuff. I'm like, wow, I can kind of, now I see why you would have that kind of stuff. But it's interesting. But the snakes, we saw nothing usually during the day. Jimmy and I did see, when we were driving a back road, we saw, because we went out and did some recon during the day for a place that we'd want to go to, like maybe at night. And this really, really long, like dirt road in the back area was nice. And we saw a couple of racer snakes back there, but they were way too fast to catch. As soon as I got out of them, I'm like, okay, snake, let's go. As soon as I got out of the car, they're like, yeah, because the thing is that there's road, there's a little bit of grass on the edge of the road, then there's jungle. And as soon as they get in there, you're like, yeah, we're not gonna catch those. And the racer snakes are actually pretty good size. There you go, Alan. I now have time to do car stuff. Look on the bright side. Nitromethane is super expensive. It is. About a 5-gallon bucket of it from my E85 supplier. It's like a buck and a half for a 50/50. Yeah. I thought Cletus was saying it was $300 or $400 for the pail that they bought. Nathan, what's up? Post pictures of your trip. I am. I'm going to do a whole video on it, Todd. Eastern Diamondback. Yep, I mentioned that. We did see that. I was very, very excited. Midday live stream. I'll do another one tonight. Not stacking nickels yet? Yeah, no. Not stacking nickels or quarters or 50-cent pieces or dollars. Just raise the right height of your RX-48. Been lowering itself for the last couple of months. Uh-oh. What do you have threaded collars on it? Or are the collars backing down? We noticed that. We had to put a secondary collar below it and tighten, and that seemed to do it, because even the little, some of those threaded collars for adjustable coilover sleeves have like an Allen set screw on it. Some of them have a little rubber nub on the end of them too, so you screw that in and tighten it so it just holds the thing in place, basically, so that it doesn't like vibrate itself down, because it has force and it has vibration. That's a good way to get everything moving. But if you can stop it, and then eventually we just put another collar under it, and then just tighten the two together. Bought one of those DIY stainless exhaust kits from Amazon, and the stuff welded. Yeah, not good. Good mandrel bend. So yeah. Here in Florida, mosquito repellent just a suggestion. Yeah, I think that the mosquitoes just liked it, and it was like a rave party for them. But when you're walking through, like I bought a headlamp, and so we're walking down the road because we did some walking, also some 4 or 5 miles or whatever. And we're walking down the road, and all you see is like all the bugs. Like, oh, a light, yeah, let's go there. That's a food light. Did you practice firearms and bow shooting? Any? Things got super crazy worldwide in the USA since you left and got back. So I leave for a minute and the whole world falls apart. Foot control, tempo, flow control, argon. Like mentioned, it's the dirty cast aluminum that you have to burn the crap out of. A lot more to keep it in check, but worth it once you get a handle on it. Yeah, it was. You can tell from, like, I did some practicing just with no rod, and we would just, bring the tip across it and vary the voltage and stuff. But you could see as you're just going across the sheet of aluminum that, like, oh, look at all these impurities. It's all burning out. Wait till you try TIGging aluminum. Nah, no, I don't want to do that. That's way too expensive. Remember when the family saw our first eastern diamondback in Florida? It was crossing the road 7+ feet. That's pretty big. Good day, crocodile hunter. We did see lots of crocodiles, and it was cool. It was interesting because when we would go out during the day, we would see nothing. I'm like, what's with this? The Florida Everglades are empty. There's just nothing here. There's just swamp. There's no animals. There's no nothing. We thought, wow, the pythons have like decimated the swamp. But then at night, like that's when the party starts. And so we'd be driving at night, and when we were driving down this one dirt road, we'd come up to the we were calling them little culverts, but it was like a bridge with a tube running underneath it, and then you would connect one side of the swamp and it would flow from one side to the other. And so you have water flow going through there, and the water was really, really clear. There were lots of fish in there. We saw lots of catfish. In fact, we saw one of Jimmy's sons found an albino catfish, which was really cool. He goes, hey, look at this one. I'm like, what one? And what are you talking about? He goes, the white one right there. I said, you need to move your light. I can't see it because it's disappearing in the white light. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's an albino catfish. Because that's the only one that we saw. But there were lots of those, and I thought that I saw a bass, like a straight bass. And I don't know if that's what it was. I need to look up and see what fish are in there. But lots of other fish in there. And then also in there are the alligators come out at night, and they don't like when you shine the light at them. But we found one just sitting in the grass on the side of the road. So again, not a good place to be walking down the road. And this one was big. This had to be 8+ feet. And that's in the video of us jumping out of the car, because as we're driving by, Jimmy's son said, hey, stop. An alligator, don't back up, don't run it over. I'm like, we did not miss an alligator in the middle of the road. I said, I'm pretty good at spotting stuff. I'm like, we did not miss it. He goes, no, it's off to the side. It's off to the side. And we started backing up. I'm like, whoa, that's like really big. And so we got out and we're taking a look at it. And it just did what most animals do. Just wanted to turn and go back into the water where it's safe and get away. But we saw lots of them. We would stop at all those little bridges, and then we would get out and look around and shine the spotlight. Found a little baby one, which I really, really wanted to catch. And then there were some other smaller ones, and then some, little ones and medium-sized ones, and then a couple of pretty good-sized ones that you'd look at and go, oh yeah, I'm not sure I could really take that. Richard, have you ever worked on a Suzuki Samurai motor? I have not. I have looked under the hood of a Samurai before, but I've never done any work on them. Seeing gator roadkill. Yeah, I did see a small gator that had been run over, and we saw lots of that. Like we found lots of snakes that had been run over, probably 4 or 5 of them. And then when we were driving in the Everglades, like the park, the frogs were just crazy. they were everywhere. People were running them over and stuff. That was kind of awful. But there's just so many of them. They're like, like little tree frogs. But we found a garter snake that had grabbed one of the frogs and was trying to eat it. And I'm like, there's a snake. So we stop, we jump out, we run over there. I'm like, hey, look, it's a little garter snake. Hey, look, it has a frog in its mouth. And it was like, I'm not giving up this frog. It was starting to crawl away. It's trying to hold the frog up, while it's crawling away. It was just awesome. Chase a gator off a golf course. That was fun. Yeah. It's I don't know what it is. And it's and this is where people get in trouble, but it just makes you want to touch them. I want to touch it. Yes, there's threaded collars. Yeah. TN coilovers. Okay. Yeah, it was very, very cool. But the interesting thing is, as we're driving, we saw the big gator along the side, just kind of sitting, just kind of chilling in the grass. After that, if we got out and we were walking anywhere on the road, we're like in the center of the road, looking over before we had walked over near the edge of the water, because you definitely want to check yourself. But again, just cool stuff, because all kinds of different things that I don't see when I'm here. We don't have to worry about walking up to a water's edge that something's going to jump out and maybe try to get us. Richard, did you fly back? Yeah, I flew back into Atlanta, and then we drove down from Atlanta down all the way down to Miami. It was interesting to be, like I said, we would be out till 2 or 3 in the morning. Good times. Yeah, gators, and because Louisiana has lots of swamps too, right? I don't think I've been to Louisiana. Yeah, but it was cool. Lots of what did I see in armadillos by Jimmy's house? Which again, that's cool. And he has he's got a pond, or it's probably a pond, but it's not a lake, back behind his house, and snakes in there. I was looking around for snakes and picked up one of he's got one of those little crazy cart things, that does donuts and stuff. And then there's a little bunny underneath there. Just this is my place, this is my chill. So I just set it back down and let him do his thing. The other one that I wanted to see, and Jimmy has them by his house, but I kind of wanted to see a copperhead too, because I've never seen one, and I wanted to get one of those. But the water moccasins, or cottonmouths, a couple that we saw were beautiful. I mean, the patterns on them were amazing, and the Eastern Diamondback was amazing. It had recently shed, so it was really, really their pattern, their skins and stuff are really, really beautiful. They get kind of dingy right before they shed, but then after they do, it's like, hey, I'm all clean, nice and new. Yeah, gators just walking around. We were kind of hoping to see one, like, we wanted to be going down these back roads and stuff and just see one kind of walking across the road, which would be cool. Eastern Diamondbacks do get a lot bigger than Western Diamondbacks. Yeah, they're a lot bigger. That's kind of why I wanted to see one. But we saw baby, but I didn't care. It was cool. It was a brand new baby too. It only had one button. So it was new. It was new to the world. And it was really, really chill. It was not at all. And I could see why they were out, because all of those frogs, I'm like, oh, the snakes are going to just love this. This is like, it's like an all-you-can-eat frog buffet. And so that's what we found, lots of snakes out that night. There was a scare recently in Florida because some of the armadillos carry leprosy, and it's a leprosy that can be transmitted across species. Wow, that's crazy. Are you doing any racing or just back to work? I'm not doing any racing. Not right now. I would like to go to Bonneville, but Back in 91, I donated my 14-foot python to Sacramento because it became aggressive and wouldn't eat. What kind of python was it, Todd? Was it a Burmese or rock or reticulated? Richard, did you bring a Honda Beat home? No. I do want to. I've been looking for lots of different kinds of AMR qualified test motors, test vehicles. Mostly the Geo Metros and things like that. Although lots of other things have been coming out. They've all had some sort of weird thing that has stopped me from getting them. The next video I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, because people want to see a comparison, I'm going to do a comparison between the different 500 horsepower versions of that 5.3, because quite honestly, 541 horsepower versus 511, which one of those do you want? Actually, I think most people are probably going to choose the lesser horsepower. Yeah, Nathan, I saw the ad. Yeah, that would be a good one. But what I want is, ideally want a Geo Metro with a stick, and it doesn't really matter whether it's carbureted or fuel injected. We can make it work either way. In fact, it would be interesting if we still had the right signal to the map sensor, if I could disconnect the fuel injection and run it carbureted, which like we've done many times on the engine dyno. We've done that a lot with Ellis. Yeah, peak horsepower power is nice for bragging. Yeah, sometimes we're just looking for a big number, and that's why we ran RPM and short runner and stuff. But the reality is, you would be much happier with something that has, like in our case, an extra 40 foot-pounds of torque would definitely be beneficial. Much more important than the number that happens at 7,700. The other thing I was disappointed about in this trip is that we thought that iguanas would be everywhere too. Even when we went down to Miami, which there are a lot of them there, we didn't see any in the running around or in the trees or anything. We saw lots of lizards and lots of geckos, which are cool. We saw that when I was in the Bahamas and stuff too. The geckos are cool because you can see them. They know when the lights come on, like they're on the sides of buildings and stuff on the walls, and they go up and hide in a little area. But when the lights come on, that's when all the bugs come. And so the geckos know that. And then that's like the dinner bell. So the lights bring all the mosquitoes and the bugs and everything. And the geckos go out and just hang out right there. They're like, oh yeah, there's way more here than we can eat. And so they just hang out there on the wall and get them. Do the Metros come with 3 or 5 speeds? They were available with automatics, but they were also available with 5 speeds. On your small block Ford intake test, all the manifolds are as cast, not port match, correct? Yeah, I don't think I've done any ported manifold testing on small block Fords. Richard, it was a reticulated python. Yeah, those get really big. Those get twice as big as 14 feet, and they're thick too. A lot of people hunt the iguanas for food. They call them the chicken of the trees. Yeah, they're an invasive species, and they just have overrun everything. I was in Florida. I was all from the top to the bottom. We were in Florida. When I was in Florida, I saw an iguana on the side of the road. It had to be 3 feet long. Yeah, they'll get 5 or 6 feet, and they're big. I had, when I was young, when I was a kid, I had an iguana as a pet for like a year and a half, I think. And they're cool. Mine was pretty nice. It was not aggro at all, but you got to watch out for some of them. In the wild, the tail whips can be pretty aggressive. Florida doesn't have really big spiders. I think the biggest is the banana spider. We saw some good sized spiders, not like not like tarantula-sized spiders. But the cool thing is that one of the things that we noted is whatever spiders that were there that we saw, the big ones, the webs were like were like super strong. We'd walk through them and it would like almost stop you, because then that's the other thing, that they would come out at night, and the webs that they would do were huge. They would come from the tree like all the way down to the ground, but there's lots of bugs there too. So they did you make it to the Sarasota Bradenton area? We drove by that. Yeah, because we drove from Atlanta, from the outside of Florida, all the way through Florida, all the way down to we ended up down by Miami. But yeah, the spider webs were like super strong. I think they were made of cable. I think they were trying to catch cars and stuff driving by. It was cool. I like going to other places, other states, and meeting different people, and all of that's really, really good. And like I said, all the people that we stopped and talked to were like super cool. They're like, "Oh yeah, you need to go over here or over here," or like, I don't know. One guy we stopped, he was with his wife. We stopped and talked to him. He's really super cool, but he's like, I've never seen a python. I don't think they're here. I'm like, they're here. Trust me. It's like I get that here too. Oh, I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen any rattlesnakes. I don't think there are any rattlesnakes around here. I said, oh yeah, there's hundreds of them around here. You just have to know where they are. You have to go look for them, which I don't recommend people doing, unless you have some experience doing that. But the fact that you haven't seen them walking from your front door over to your car, and that you didn't run across one there, that doesn't mean that they're not around. 671 blower for under $500 on Facebook is a bad idea. $600 for 671 is a good idea. I would be worried about what condition it is in, because you might find that the bearings are shot on it, the rotors are shot on it, the inside the blower housing is all scuffed up and has had stuff run through it, and so you might spend a ton of money like fixing it to make it work. Remember my parents bringing us to Alligator Alley? That sounds like a cool place. While we were on vacation and we were feeding stuff to the alligators around the side of the road. My brother and I are throwing apples to them. They do like chicken. Will a higher duration at 50 lower torque overall, making the torque at a higher RPM? It may not lower the peak torque. It may just happen at a higher RPM. But your massive torque is not going to come from the camshaft. It like I said, you could shift it out if you did a 218, 224, or 224, 230 cam. Sometimes it makes a higher peak torque number. It just happens at a higher engine speed. The case looks like it's lived in a bit of a junk hauler for the past 10 years. Yeah, that does happen. And so you got to be leery about that. By the way, we had a couple of boost weather days. Yeah, we had it was a lot colder when we got back to Atlanta when we took the NSX for a ride. It was definitely boost weather. It was in the 60s, so it was kind of nice. And you do get a gain from ambient air temperature. As a kid, I saw a 6-foot rattlesnake on the backside of Lake Natomas. That's a really, really big snake. Richard, you could have popped up to just popped up to Virginia. I'm pretty sure. Let's see, we had to have driven, I'm sure, more than 1,500 miles total. Yeah, Todd, do you know why alligators like chicken so much? Because humans are harder to catch. I looked at some of the alligators. I think I would get in the water with that guy. I'm pretty sure I could take him. Mostly the little baby one. Yeah, Baby Shark. I don't know if the other trucks that were driving around, if they were tight LSA cammed. Will we ever see an HI 392 on the other guy's series? H1 forged crank and rods, decent sized valves. Kompanski makes cams for them. It sounds like it would like boost. What do I find those motors in? Are they in like Scouts or something? What are they in? Were you there when the woman got eaten by the alligator? No, that happened before we went down there. A 6-foot Western Diamondback would be like a world record. So that would be unusual. A 6-foot Eastern Diamondback is a really still a really good sized snake. Lodestar, grain trucks, school buses were common 392s, so the big 10-quart oil pans. See, I don't see a lot of, in the wrecking yards I go to, I don't see a lot of trucks and buses and stuff. I need to try some other ones. There are some other ones that are not too far away from West Tech that had more trucks and stuff. Came across a 12-foot alligator. And 12 feet is really big for an American alligator. $40 years ago. So let's see. Female alligators rarely exceed 10 feet in length, but males can grow much larger. The Florida state record for length is 14 feet, 3.5 inches from Lake Washington and Brevard County. The Florida weight record is 1,043 pounds from Orange Lake. Wow, those are big. 1,000-pounder, man. I have not been to Freedom Factory, although I got an invite from somebody on my way back. So I'm going to look into that and see. Okay, overly built. Here, you had the cam question. Bring the Omni and do spectator drags. I was down in Florida myself, Pensacola and Destin Beach. Maximum RPM of 6,000, boosted 5-liter, roughly 700 foot-pounds of torque at 3,000 RPM. So what intake manifold are you using on that? Because obviously you're making more than, are you making a lot more torque than horsepower there? 5,000 foot-pounds of torque at the tire is not 750 foot-pounds of torque, like at the flywheel, if that's what your conversion is. Have you ever tested the LS, the Edelbrock twin throttle body LS intake manifold? The are you talking about the cross ram one? If that's the one you're talking about, yes, I have. That video is up. It's really cool looking, and it did very well. It's fairly heavy, and I don't know, are they still making it? Tom's Tumbler Machine. Seems like a fun place, right? So I got to have a poll, right? So I got to have a Florida related poll. So, where are my Python people out there? Would you go into the swamp and look for pythons? Would you be down with that? I'm in California, but I took a trip back to Florida, which was cool. And now I'm gonna have the next one I go on is probably gonna have to go to Ohio to get my we didn't see any coral snakes, which I would love to see that too. We did see some I didn't see any boars. We saw some little ones, little pigs, and actually we saw those back by Jimmy's house, back near Atlanta. There were 3 or 4 little ones just kind of walking along the road. I did, Ryan. We didn't do an airboat ride, mostly because I was just so excited about doing what we were doing and wanting to spend the most amount of time. Knowing what I know now, we would not be, since we're not going to be seeing really anything during the day, we should have taken an airboat ride during the day. Factory AMC R4B drivetrain is a turbo 400 dual transfer case. Oh, yeah, so you got a lot of drivetrain loss there. Dyno 70s, 513s. Okay. So yeah, you are making a lot of torque. We tested Toyota 1GR-FE 4-liter 6-series V6. The block is almost as similar like an LS 6-bolt main, but double overhead cam. I haven't ever run one. The problem with trying to run some sort of specialized motor is it's hard to do on the dyno. So we have to have a dedicated bell housing that bolts to the dyno and to the motor. Motor mounts are easy because we just attach something to the block, but some sort of dedicated harness to work with some sort of standalone management system. Again, so it's a lot of work and time and money to get something even just running before you start doing the testing. Did you see any gators down there? Yeah, we said lots of them. All of them that we saw were at night. One GRFE. Ron, I don't really understand your question. So where's our poll at? so we're kind of split. Some yeses and some nos. Caladog Garage says you need an LSA of 56 to have a proper engine. Anything else is way too much. A 56, that'd be pretty tight. When you're getting into just double digit LSAs, it's that's pretty tight. So you're wanting essentially the intake and exhaust to open at the same time with just all overlap. Like I said, I would like to try. I'm up for trying all that stuff. But what you'll find is just like if we took 2 camshafts and we had one camshaft and we had another camshaft on some combination, what you'll see is something's going to happen between those 2 camshafts. So and the same thing's going to happen if we, I don't know how people just think that you change that number, you change the LSA number. Oh, that's 110. It needs to be 106. Okay, let's make it a 106. But then what happened to the other things that you did? When you do that, it changes other stuff. So what happened? And do you want that to happen? And then what if we advance that? What if we retarded that? There are other things that are going to happen that can still have that same number that you want, but these numbers over here can be completely different. So what numbers over here do you want to combine with that? And then what's going to happen when you do that on the specific combination that you did it on? And that's what a lot of people don't see. They think that it's a generalized statement that, like, you know, all of these do this. And we know that never happens. And just a heads up, snakes don't like being sprayed with brake clean. No, things don't like that. People don't like that either. It works pretty well on spiders, though, and ants and cockroaches. Yeah, they don't. Petrochemical stuff is not usually good. Animals don't like that. Brake clean in a fire. I did that to a wasp nest, actually. And before people go off, I'm a friend to the bees. Bees are my boys. They're, you know, those are my peeps. But the wasp nest had to go. And brake clean on fire worked very, very well. Go up to Michigan to look for snow snakes. There we go. Tom, how's it going, man? Yeah, brake clean works really good. You have to get the good brake clean, the like environmentally friendly stuff that's just a suggestion for cleaning. It doesn't even get dirt or anything off. Which one would you prefer, a stock LS1 or a stock 454? A stock 454 small block? There's no such thing as a stock 454 small block. There's only a 454 big block. And by LS1, do you mean a 5.7 LS1? And then also, what are you trying to do with it? What, you know, what's your goal? Have you ever compared a sheet metal low ram like the Sniper to a cast low ram? I've never run the new Holley low ram, so I have a fairly good idea what it's going to do. But the sheet metal Sniper is, I think, a slightly longer runner length than the low ram is. Neither one of those are going to be good for like a street car, for something that's 7,000 RPM or less. Those are both very high RPM intake manifolds. They're not something I normally recommend to people. For 99% of the people, they're not good choices. They fit and they look nice. And if you're getting it for that, I understand that. But they trade so much power compared to a Fast or something, or even a Trailblazer SS or one of those manifolds that has runner length in it. There's not a magic short runner intake manifold that does all the good stuff. Florida gator size. So now we'll do a Florida crocodile size. Florida crocodile size. Common weights of adult American crocodiles in Florida may range from 12 feet 8 inches. So those are smaller than like Nile crocodiles and stuff. Caiman are primarily found in freshwater canals and lakes and rarely exceed 5 feet. Habitat: American crocodiles are shy and reclusive species. They live in coastal areas throughout the Caribbean. I didn't realize that they had caiman there too. So I need to look and see. Now it makes me want to look at some of our the largest American crocodile was a male found in Tarcoles River in Costa Rica. It was 18 feet. Wow. Yeah, I need to look and see. I need to make sure that some of the ones that we weren't looking at were not caiman now. Yeah, Nathan, but does your intake fit though? I mean, if it fits and it fits under the hood and does that. I know that the turbo is too small for a 5-liter GT35 with the 0.82 AR. We were looking for quick response, but struggles to rev past 4,200. Exhaust side choking. Will a T4 81 3-inch outlet be better? Is your GT35 82, is it a T3? It probably is, right? But where is your what you might be experiencing is what's happening with your boost curve. Do you have a falling boost curve past 4,200? Have you seen the alligator at Circle B Ranch near Lakeland? I have not. I'll have to check it out. Learning vinyl wrap techniques. Nice. Saltwater crocs in Costa Rica. And the one that they had in Lake Placid was actually an Asian one. Smell a rabbit hole, exactly. It's not as short as the LS1 intake. Okay. Vinyl wrap would be cool. I would love to vinyl wrap my truck because all the clear coat is peeling off. And so the only way to fix it is to take everything off. So I'd actually just put red vinyl wrap over it. So I don't even care if there's a ridge there. Have you ever tested a naturally aspirated motor with direct injection versus port injection? The only way to do that is to run direct injection like Brian Tooley has tested on their LT base motor. They have run it with direct injection and then run it with port injection with the injection in the manifold. And it made more power with the direct injection, which surprised me. But then when you think about it, the fuel is displacing some of the airflow. So that's probably why you see a change in power. Vinyl wrap your truck a different color. I just want it to be the same color. I just want it to be red. I just want it to be red where it's red. Or I could put some, some sort of fancy one. Boost curve does not fall off. Yes, it's a T3. So if the boost doesn't fall off, I don't know how, if the boost pressure isn't, if it stays flat, you should continue making power past 4,200. The red that's on my truck, I actually like. I like that color. I think it looks good. I think it would look better if all of the clear coat was not peeling off of it. Did you get a new door handle? I did. I actually got a new rear door handle to open up the rear door and fix that because that was like $8. But I haven't got a new door panel and door handle for the passenger side. It still has the Harbor Freight ratchet strap loop and bolted to the door. It's extra fancy. 2 more minutes. Our poll is like at 55% saying no. So more people saying no. They don't want to go into the swamp. There's a lot of, I think that there's probably a lot of misconception about going in and doing this. Like some of the things that we did, I wouldn't do again after seeing what we saw. But the worst thing of all of it were the mosquitoes by far. I mean, I have 100 bites on me, I'm sure. So that was bad. And then we would do it a little bit differently. I probably wouldn't get out. I might not get out and walk as much as we did. Like we walked down one of the dirt roads, like I said, for I'm sure 4 or 5 miles. And I like doing that because we could see a lot better than we could from hanging out the window with spotlights. The guys that were had a better setup. They had trucks and they had built rigs in the beds of their truck. So they had like 3 or 4 people there and they had elevated platforms. And then they had big, like off-road, like Super Casey highlights or whatever, aiming off to the side. And then they also had their own spots. So that's a really good way. But to do that, you got to be outside in the back of the truck riding with all the mosquitoes, which, it's one of the things you got to do. but that's a good setup. And then you're able to see way more on the side. We didn't ever see anything on the side where all of this, where you'd be looking, except for the first Burmese python. But I saw it because its head was sticking out past the edge of the grass where the street was. So that's why I said, hey, you got to stop, stop, stop. Don't run it over. And so that I could see it and catch it. Because I've trained myself for the last 100 years, like while I'm driving down the freeway, I'm looking at the side, looking for snakes. And it's just that you catch, I know what that looks like. And so we see a lot of things that look like that. We call them stick snakes because they're that, or puddle snakes, or anything else that looks like a snake for at least momentarily, and it's not a snake. So it's that kind of snake. And so I see a lot of that. So we see a lot of things and stop and look at a lot of things that are not snakes, but we do see a lot of things that are snakes, and we're able to get them. I don't mind the swamp, just not the snakes. Yeah, there were a lot of water moccasins there, but again, they're not going to come after you. Car farm, what are you dissing on? Oh, the truck, and it's still not turboed? Yeah, it's not going to be turboed. Just buy new junkyard stuff, it'll break in a year or less. Yeah, I would like to get, I just need to get it. I mean, I just need to bite the bullet and pay the money. Boost holds 18 pounds, 11.4 air fuel. 18 pounds on that little turbo on that size motor? That seems like a lot. Direct injection helps with pre-detonation. Could that also be a factor? I know these motors, DI, usually run higher compression because of it. Going to search Brian till you see the LT test. Yeah, but none of that came into play during this test. The compression was still the same. That didn't change. And there's no detonation with either setup. And so you could run enough timing and air fuel, and they swept all that stuff to find out what works best. It's just that the port injection didn't work as well as the DI did. What your truck is it? I can get it cheap at the pick apart. I can too. It's just that, like, every time I go to any sort of yard, which I go to a lot, looking for motors primarily, but there are no body panels in any of the trucks that we go to. Mine's a 2002 Silverado, but all of that stuff is immediately stripped off. Those seem to be prized possessions. The whole door panel and pull assembly. It's time to go. I got to get another video ready, and lots of other stuff to do while I was away. Obviously, lots of normal life things happen, so I got to take care of. But thank you guys all for showing up. I'll be back tonight, and then hopefully I'll get that video up today so we can choose between the different power curves and see which one we like better. I'll see you guys all tonight. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam.